Hi there. Welcome back to another episode of Direct Edition. I'm your host, Dave, the guy from last week and last season, and the guy from your childhood that you used to be friends with, but you lost touch with. Well, I'm back. Well, friends, thank you for coming back for season 2. I hope you enjoyed the first episode of the podcast in the new season. Today, I'm just going to play a little catch up. I'm going to talk about another piece of, we're going to talk about a TV show today. But just some things that have been on my mind. If you're new here, please subscribe to the podcast. We'll talk about the reviews after. I have a new website, westcoastdavengers.com. It's also directeditionpodcast.com. If you're interested in some of the things that I do, including the YouTube or the Kirby Zine with Andrew, well, you can go there to find out all the information. I hope everybody had a good 4th of July weekend, and if they went away on vacation, well, I hope you enjoyed yourself. And if you didn't, I hope you enjoyed your staycation. Today is July 13th. The world is a little bit crazier than it was yesterday, and so on and so forth. Look up the date, you know what happened. I'm not going to get into politics here, but I can say this. No matter what happens in November, my personal opinion is that we're all fucked. Just starting off on a positive note, right? Well, I haven't been feeling super positive. I did have some good garage sale finds this weekend. Lots of good comics, and I always enjoy doing that. So that's a positive note. But I had a guest on my YouTube show ghost me. So that's never a good feeling. I'll leave the name out of that just for reasons. You know, I work really hard on putting all of this together, and I have people that really help me. On the podcast side, I have Andrew, who helps me out with the synopsis and also gives me some good notes, if I should take something out or if I should add something in. For example, his helpful note for the first podcast, the Jaws Nope Godzilla podcast, was to add more clips. So I did. And I hope you enjoyed that aspect of it, even though some of the clips were just roars and screams. You want something added on to it, right? And on the YouTube side, I've got Joe Scar, who designs all of the thumbnails. He executes all my ideas that I have. And then in the middle of that, my friend Megan at her company Loaf Social. Yes, that's Loaf Social. She's been doing reels and stuff for me. So, it's a process, but I do 90% of the work, let's say. And to have somebody ghost me and without even canceling, it puts me in a state of like, I question myself a little bit, right? More than I normally do. But I do a lot of mental prep for an interview. Let's say you're Jimmy Jimison, comic book artist extraordinaire. And the reason why I asked you in the first place is because I'm a fan of something that you've done, right? I typically like to interview people that I am a fan of because I don't want to waste anybody's time. I don't want to waste my time. I don't want to waste the other person's time in interviewing somebody that I don't actually have an interest in. But if I have an interest in, I will go and for 2 days, maybe 3 days, I will binge watch and listen to all of the interviews that I can in recent times, and then I try to go back as far as I can to get an idea of the questions that have been asked, the stories that have been told. Because why retread the same steps, right? There are some people that you do have to get asked some of the same questions. There's a couple of questions I asked Todd McFarlane and Eric Larson that they've been asked before. Try to ask them in a different way. But for people like Mike Allred, I just led him to water. Barely even asked him too many questions, and he told some great stories. To me, now I'm not a journalist by any stretch. I am a talker, and I am very inquisitive. So, but to me, an interview that's done well is one that leads the subject, the person, to talk about whatever it is that you want them to talk about, but let them get there. Plus, you also, as well as that, you have to be interested. Like, you look at some interviews that are done at press junkets and they ask the same question over and over. So then you get actors and actresses and so on kind of like you could tell the interviews that were done at the end of the day because they're just like bored. But if you look at somebody like, if you look at Hot Ones, or you listen to maybe Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend, some of these people that go out of their way to do their research, they ask interesting questions, and the subject is always delighted that they've done their research. So I do a lot of work in prep, and it's like hitting a pothole going 70 miles an hour when somebody ghosts on you, and you've done all this prep for nothing. So that threw me for a loop. It really did. And it just threw me for a loop right there. And so that was just one of those things that I was like, oh man. So I'd recently gone to Heroes Con in North Carolina, which was in June. And Heroes Con is known around the comic world and the Comic-Con scene as like the best pure Comic-Con to this day, and has been for a long time. Started by Shelton Drum, who owns a store in Charlotte called Heroes Aren't Hard to Find. And I was slated to go, I was going to go last year, and I was going to go like 4 or 5 years ago when I worked for the CBLDF, but I didn't, and I never got to go. So this year I made the decision to go for multiple reasons. Reason 1 being that I always wanted to go, obvious one. Reason 2 was Jim Rugg was going to be there. Ed Pisker's family is going to be there. I've had Jim on my channel twice. We've started kind of a pen pal friendship. Aside from that, shooting emails back and forth and just kind of talking. And so I really wanted to face-to-face meet him in person, especially this year with Ed's passing and then Ed's family being there. Tom Scioli was there. Jim Mafood was there. A couple of people that I've had on the channel, and then a bunch of people that I haven't had on the channel. Shout out to everybody that I met, everybody I saw, the Cosmic Lion team, and Jeremy Heiler, and Kazra was, nice to hang out with him from OAX/Comic Art Fans. So in a way, it was a little bit of a networking extravaganza. But I like to get myself in front of people if I'm going to ask them to be on my channel, if possible. It's a little bit more personal when you approach somebody at their table and you talk to them in person and you say, hey, I'd love to have you on the channel. But right now, it really hasn't yielded any interviews. I haven't done any interviews actually since I think the last ones I did were at Davenger Con. But I got some original art signed. I bought some original art. It was a great time, regardless of the results on interviews. Like, even if I don't get a single interview from it, I still look back at my trip there and it was totally awesome. But for a comic convention, and I didn't look at too many comics to tell you the truth. I got to see my buddy Wayshak. That was, bought some art from him, but I maybe bought 5 or 6 books and magazine. And then I bought a bunch of indie creator-owned books and stuff like that. I was gifted some stuff, and I read everything I came home with, and it was all fantastic. I have no complaints, but I still walked around and I people watched and I looked at tables and I saw what, people were buying and stuff like that. And it really was such a great experience. So for anybody who is thinking about going to Heroes next year, I'm going to make it a goal to go back next year and hopefully go each subsequent year after. Yeah, it was a blast. And, well, hopefully it'll yield some stuff. San Diego Comic-Con's in 2 weeks, so I think a lot of artists and writers and creators are prepping for San Diego Comic-Con, and I think extracurricular activity like an interview may not be the right time for it. I'm nothing but understanding to that, but, I don't like to waste people's time. That is a big deal for me. But you can never expect the reciprocation of not having your time wasted. That is what it is. But I've been dealing with some other time wasters here and there, and eBay is one of those time wasters. I have an eBay store. I've been doing eBay. If you listen to the last podcast I did, came from the newsstand, I talked about eBay a lot. I have an eBay store. I've been selling on eBay since like 99, 2000. So we're running up on 25 years. I stopped wasting my time answering most questions that people will ask me on eBay. They'll see an item and they'll be like, will you take $55? And it's like, I don't answer that, because you can use the fucking make an offer button. That's why it's there. You hit the button, you make an offer. Doesn't go through, you make another one. I mean, it's not rocket science. It's barely even addition. 2 + 2 = 4. is not that far off from make a fucking offer with the button. But a couple people on there just sent me some stupid messages, and it was just like, you start typing out a response, or I start typing out a response, and then I'm like, why am I wasting my fucking time? One of the hardest things about being human, and you might agree with me, you might be nodding with me right now as I say this. One of the hardest things about being human is to to exercise your self-control. And it is something that I have struggled with my entire life. I have been handed down via DNA, thanks Dad, my temper, and I let it get the best of me for a lot of my life. Really did. I think that kind of goes along with also my drinking habits too. What's the best way to dull your senses? With alcohol? And I'm not blaming the alcohol part of my dad, because as far as I know, I'm the only person in my family that's ever really, or at least that I know of, that's had a drinking problem. And my dad definitely does not have a drinking problem. Neither does my mom. Neither does my brother. So I don't know where the fuck it comes from, to tell you the truth. My temper was something I worked on for a long time. And that does come with the exercising of self-control. So there are a lot of times where I will type out, and I was just like, no, Dave, don't send it. The same kind of goes along with, and this is a newer world to me. I'm almost on year 3 of my YouTube channel, but there are times where I will type out a comment and I will go to hit the enter button and I just X out of it, because it's not worth getting upset over. It's not worth your time. I don't know if I said this on the podcast. I said this recently, I feel like, on a live show on YouTube. When it comes to positive comments, right? The people that put those positive comments are real. Like when you put positive energy out to them and compliment somebody, thank somebody, like, you write that, whether it's in a comment or it's a text or, it's in vocally, it's out loud. That's like a real person doing that. It just takes a little bit to write positive things. And it means that it's sincere. Even if it's feigning sincerity, there's still some sincerity behind it. People will comment a positive thing just to have a comment in there. But I feel like to make that decision to write something positive, a synapse has to fire like, I'm going to make this person's day better. But then on the flip side of it, what I said about negative comments is the people that comment negative stuff, they're not real. Like, they're not real people. They may actually be flesh and blood and have brains and hearts, but they're not real. Like when you make a negative comment to somebody, and I don't mean a subjectively negative comment or objectively, like, writing like, I didn't like that movie, I thought it was blah, blah, blah. That's just a criticism. Or I think your video sounded like crap. Well, yeah, maybe my microphone was off, whatever. But when you say something like, you're a bitch, in a fucking anonymous, faceless comment, you're not a real person. Like that's not how real people are. And this kind of ties into Heroes, because Ed Pisker's family, his 2 sisters, Justine and Bree, we were having a conversation, maybe it was day 2 of the con, and I said, have you had anybody come up and like say anything even off color? And they both said no, not even close. Like nobody said anything even remotely off color, because all the circumstances surrounding Ed's death, the people that are responsible for putting him in the state that he was in mentally to take his own life, those are the people that wrote some fucking awful things. But you would never see one of those people say it in person. Hence my comment, they're not real people. And so I have to keep reminding myself that every once in a while I get just a really ugly, or just a not even really ugly, or just an ugly negative comment. And I have to remind myself, like, that person's got more problems than I could ever know. And that's why they're hiding behind a screen. And that's why they're saying negative stuff to me or to anybody else. And it's because they don't have anything in their life else to do. Otherwise, they'd be either in front of the camera, having their own little negative show, or they're not real. So I'll just go with they're not real. So I have to think twice about when I say, when I respond to something, and I generally don't anymore. Every once in a while, something will get the best of me. I'm only human, right? For example, somebody left some ugly negative comment when I did a YouTube video, The Legacy of Cartoonist Kayfabe. And before I actually said this in the comment, I said something like, before I block you and delete this comment, I just want you to know you're a fucking Nazi. Because I feel like calling somebody a Nazi is a pretty good insult for being a piece of shit. And then I just blocked him and deleted the comment. Or I deleted the person's comment, which in turn deleted my comment too. And I think I reported their comment too because it was something disgusting. But then there's always a funny way to respond to negative comments. I'll never forget the first negative comment I got on my YouTube channel. It's like video 2 or 3 or 4. And the person said, "Now I know why you only have like 100 something subscribers." I don't remember what number I was at. And I just responded with, "You smell like farts." Because like, how can that person respond? You know, what are they going to say? I retorted with a 10-year-old comment, you know, like that's what a child would say. That's usually the best way to respond to people like that. You just go too low and then they can't go any lower. It's like Limbo, right? When that bar is too low and you try and go under it, you just fall. That's what that comment is. Other than that, like the YouTube channel's been getting a lot of positivity to it. I think I'm starting to gain the audience. You know, I've got the core audience, you know, the people that have been with me for a year, 2 years, 3 years, you know, but it's growing and the core is growing. And I'm starting to get the people that I always wanted in mass, you know, the people that are kind of into comics, but also like they dig the hunt. They like the store hunt. They like the con hunt. They like the interviews, but they also want to see me flip through some weird, you know, old Comic-Con program. And that's what I'm hoping for this podcast. But I'm hoping this podcast becomes more of a wider base of people that are just generally interested in listening to a, you know, in my opinion, a really good podcast. Even though, you know, I'm kind of a schmuck. It's nice to know I still have a lot of good people in my corner when it comes to that. Like, friends are going to be friends, but you can't really ever hope that your friends who were already your friends before you started your endeavor, you can never expect them to be the audience. You can't even expect them to be your guests. You got to set your expectations wherever you find that they need to be set. You know, it's the same thing with friendships. I have a friend that I thought we were really good friends. This has happened multiple times in my life. It's just, I guess, clash personalities or whatever. But a friend that I thought was in my corner, I said something stupid. I thought we were good. I apologized. I am definitely not above apologizing. Sometimes I apologize too much. Even my friend Phil has heard me apologize 4 times for taking his drinks and whatever. Anyway, Phil, if you're listening to this, I apologize like 3 times for that. And you're like, no, I'm not mad. But anyway, I apologize for this thing I said. I thought we were all good. And I never talked to the person again because they did not think to let me know that they weren't going to talk to me anymore. Unbeknownst to me. I question a lot of the decisions I've made in my life, you know, on a regular basis. This is me being stressed or full of anxiety and also having imposter syndrome. Like, all of these things are real and they're valid. And, you know, I go through stuff like this all the time. It's chaotic in this head, very chaotic. And it's hard, very hard for me to find, you know, I think of it as a hurricane, and I'm sure I've talked about this last season, but and I'm sure a lot of you listening or some of you listening have experienced or do experience the same thing where, you know, the brain never shuts off. And I don't mean like, you know, living dead. I mean, I don't know what it's like to be calm inside my head. And I mean that in a semi-regular basis. Like, yeah, I've experienced calmness. There are calm points in my life or my day. When I did mushrooms, that was one of the calmest points of my life. And I was in a really good place for that. I just don't experience it that much. Like today, I was going to go to Seattle for Fantagraphics Hot Off the Press Expo. And I went for a walk. And I did some stuff that I needed to do. I went to a garage sale this morning as well. And then around 1 o'clock, I was like, I don't know if I don't feel like going. And then I like paced around my house. And then I'm like, oh, I got to do this or I should do this. And I did like these things. And then next thing I knew it was 6 o'clock. And I'm like, I'm not fucking going. Then I literally just finished watching something after eating dinner. And I'm like, oh, watch something else. I'm like, no, I'll get on the computer. No, and then like an hour later, I was like, fuck it. I'll just record a podcast because that's how I'm feeling. And it's just how I've always been. Even when I was in therapy, like I was always like this. Nothing about that changed. But I find ways to harness that, right? I find ways to harness it and turn it into whether it's productivity or maybe, yeah, productivity. Reading is the one thing that really does kind of center me. So I do try and read as often as I can. Comics have been the focus of reading for the last couple of years. When I feel like I'm picking up another book, I'll get into another book. I'm reading some stuff right now that I'm enjoying. High Level, which is an older book, 5 years old, from Rob Sheridan that he put out through DC Vertigo before Vertigo closed its doors. I'm reading The Complete Low Life, Ed Brubaker's pre-superhero kind of underground indie stuff. I have Space Mullet that I have to start. That's an older Daniel Warren Johnson book. I read the new Spectrograph. So yeah, I'm always trying to find time to read. And when I do, that feels like the calmness comes because I get lost in another world. TV shows, movies, either a movie I haven't seen, that'll usually bring that too because I'm fully engrossed in the movie. If it's something I've seen a bunch, there are movies that I use for comfort zone, but then sometimes if I'm watching something that like a Marvel movie, then I'm usually not going to fully concentrate on that. But a show that has come into my life since last year that has really, it's kind of like a drug in a way. It helps the chaos in my brain, and that show is The Bear. So I came back from Scotland last year, and I had COVID for the first time. Luckily, I got it on the way back so that it didn't ruin my trip. But it was the day after I got home. I woke up in the morning, and I was like, my throat doesn't feel right. I kind of feel foggy, and it's not because of the time difference. And I'm like, I have COVID, don't I? And I, like I said, never had it. Took a COVID test, had COVID. I was like, yeah, this checks out. So I did what most people should do, and most smart people and people I'm friends with do. I sequestered myself on the couch, and I turned on the TV. And in that, I was like, all right, let's see what's on FX. And I think the first thing that I actually watched, I started watching Welcome to Wrexham, which is the Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney documentary series that they bought the team in Wrexham, the football team. Fantastic show, by the way. But I was like, after I watched a couple episodes, I'm like, all right, I'm going to watch something that's drama. And I had heard good things about The Bear, but I had a friend, I have a friend named Ashley, and she talked about it all the time. Like, she posted about it. I was aware of it, but I did not know anything about it. I didn't know what it was about whatsoever. And I really thought that the lead actor, just looking at the posters for it, because I remember seeing the posters when it came out, I thought it was Aaron Taylor Johnson. So I turn on the show, not knowing a fucking thing about it. Realize that's not Aaron Taylor Johnson. It's actually Jeremy Allen White. 3 names, though. I start watching the show. And if you haven't seen the show, I'm going to stay a plot spoiler free. I'm going to talk about the plot, but I'm not going to go into any spoilers. I will dance around it. I want you to hear what I have to say about the show because I want you to watch it. This show, in one word, is chaos. It's a brilliant, chaotic thing. The gist of it is it's about a restaurant in Chicago, and the main character, Carmine Berzatto, takes ownership of this beef sandwich shop in Chicago. It's chaos because, from what I know, and I've never worked in a kitchen like that. I've worked in food service in an amusement park on Long Island, and I worked at a Subway in Long Island as well, making sandwiches. I've worked events that have very much this kind of chaotic catering, but the show is a level of chaos that brings it's like I identify with the chaos of that show, whereas my head. The show talks about mental health a lot, and it deals with characters that are dealing with some heavy mental health issues, especially because the overlying plot is that Carmine's brother, played by John Bernthal, is he is not alive in the show, but he is in flashbacks. His brother kills himself, and you don't see it. It happens. It's the gist of the show, and that's why Carmi inherits the restaurant. Honestly, like, from a standpoint of filming and orchestration and like if you were talking about a comic, like layout, the way it's laid out, There's never been anything like it on TV that at least I can point to. You know, some of my favorite shows, Lost, The Wire, Breaking Bad, you know, the ones that everybody loves. This show is easily in my top 5 for its, like I said, its layout, the way it's shot brilliantly. It's quick pace. The editing on this show is insane. It is scripted very much like, there's elements of it being scripted kind of like how Aaron Sorkin would script his shows. If you watch, specifically the one that comes to mind is The Newsroom. It's just very quick. You know, everybody's got a sharp tongue. The characters, you grow to love them or hate them within the first episode. But honestly, and I'll get back to the some of the standout episodes and all that. The thing that really, I love Chicago. I love the way, I've always loved that city. I've never lived there, but I've been there, I don't know, 15 times. I have friends that live there. I've spent some significant time there. 5 days here, 7 days there. So the depiction of Chicago, even though some of my friends from Chicago that are snobby, they're like, this isn't in the same area as this. It's like, you got to remember, it's TV. Suspension of belief. And to my couple of friends that complained about, that's not how a kitchen is. Like, once again, suspension of belief. But I've also had friends tell me they've worked in kitchens like that. We got to also remember, it's TV. You're there to be entertained. But the thing that really stands out on that show, and Chris Storer is the showrunner, the creator. He's usually the one that either directs it or scripts it. And he is the music, or at least the co-music supervisor. The use of music is a 10 of 10. Probably the best use of music on a TV show ever. Now, I don't give a shit what anybody says about any of those other shows. Now, maybe I'm biased because Chris Storer and myself have the same music taste. There's a lot of Pearl Jam. There's a lot of Reznor and Atticus Ross. There's some Radiohead. There's Wilco, which makes sense because they're a Chicago band. There is, who else? There's a lot of REM, but like the good REM. I mean, not that there's bad REM, but there's the radio-friendly REM, and then there's like the greatest indie band of all time REM. It really is like a 10 of 10 when it comes to the music, because if you're like me, music and memory for me are one and the same. There are a lot of songs that remind me about a certain place or a certain time or a certain person or going to see them live, or an album is like a whole year of my life. You know, I can think about like, the year the Brand New's last album came out, Science Fiction, which is 2018, like that, all I did was listen to that fucking album every day. They're not in the show, unfortunately. When somebody shoots a film or a TV show or even a video, like uses music for a video, like it changes the way that I take it in. And this show really does that. But largely, this is a show about a very chaotic family and a very chaotic work environment. But I think it's just like, it's one of those things in the times that we're in now, especially. There's so much chaos in our lives, in the world, in the news, in just everything, that this show settles my mind. And we could talk about standout episodes from TV shows that we love. You know, Lost, it was the constant episode with Desmond. That really stands out. Or Ozymandias for Breaking Bad. Or The Woods for The Sopranos. The Wire, I have a hard time remembering a certain episode, whereas like season 1, season 3, you know, like it's just the characters also. But there are shows that really have that standout episode. And then there's Fishes, which is an episode in the second season of The Bear. It's an hour long. It's a flashback episode set at Christmas time, at Christmas dinner with the family, the Bearzadas. And oh my fucking God. You could watch, if you watch that episode without watching the rest of the show, it still would probably be like, you would probably say, this is a 10 out of 10, or, you know, close to it. That's really what it is. And I won't tell you what happens, but there are a couple of actors and actresses that are not regulars in the series, in that they're not in every episode, but they're family members and they are in this episode, and it's bananas. And Jamie Lee Curtis pulls probably, as much as she was amazing and everything she's been in, especially Everything Everywhere All at Once, she stands out on this episode as like one of the best performances I've ever seen. And this show is infuriating at times, at most times, but this is something I thought of earlier before one of the things that I definitely wanted to say in recording this tonight. If you're a fan of Marty Scorsese, right, then you've seen Goodfellas and you've seen it many times. The scene where Ray Liotta is running the drugs in that montage scene, that's a very drug-fueled scene because he's doing coke as the scene progresses, and he's going to he's going to his house and having I forget Lorraine Bracco's character's name, but his wife hide the coke here, and then the helicopter's following, and he's picking up this and he's doing that. That's a trope of Scorsese movies. He does it in other movies. I feel like there's definitely one in The Departed, and there's that franticness in a lot of his movies. That's the entire vibe of The Bear, and that's not for everybody. There's a lot of people that get too stressed out watching stuff like that. When I talk to people about the movie Uncut Gems, a lot of people don't like it because it stresses the fuck out of them. I watched that movie and I'm like, this is the environment, and not directly, right? But this is the environment that I was brought up in. New York, Jewish, anxiety, stress, people that are like, come on. And I turned into that person, but I'm trying to manage it, and I don't have kids to impart that on, but that is very much like how my mind is. And I did a Comic-Con recently, Washington Summer Con, and my friend John worked for me, and my friend Josh helped us out. And when I'm setting up something like that and people are like, oh, what should I do, Dave? I'm like, actually just give me like 15 minutes of space and I'll take care of all of this, because I don't know how to delegate things to people in a calm manner in a stressful environment. If I'm not in a stressful environment and it's not the day of setup, then sure, I'm able to calmly do things. But in that, I need the chaos inside of me to come out in my work. And then everybody back the fuck away. Let me do this. And so, and I'm not doing it because I'm a control freak. I know how to do things very quickly and efficiently on my own. So I'd rather not piss anybody off or make anybody stressed out because I'm dealing with that. I know this has been like a rant on several levels, but this is the chaos. But this show, The Bear, it's brilliantly acted. It's won tons of accolades, like, Golden Globes. It killed last year. I think Best Actress or Actor was, I forget the names. I'm blanking on some names, but you can look it up. The internet's your friend. But I really do recommend this show to anybody that enjoys that type of chaotic, but it, it's just also, it's a technical masterpiece. Like, it looks amazing. The shots that they do, sometimes they feel like they're these long takes, and some of them are. There's a lot of off angle shots. If you look at somebody's Instagram that's curated and has like these cool little, very architectural designs, and they're shot from different angles, like that's what this show kind of feels like. But the pace, these, sometimes the episodes are 27 minutes, sometimes they're 45. You're always left wanting more, and that is a sign of a good piece of art when you can't get enough of it. The third season just came out maybe like a month ago. I watched it within 2 or 3 days. And then I went back immediately maybe like 6 days later, and I started from the beginning. So I'm almost done with the third season again. And man, it just makes so much sense to me. I can't recommend it enough. It really, it's one of those shows that if you're starting it at 7 o'clock at night, you'll want to watch till 11 o'clock at night. Like, you want to finish a season as much as you can. But it is definitely something that you should pace yourself at, just because there's a lot to take in, a lot of characters saying, it's dialogue heavy. There's, like I said, it's very quick dialogue. And you feel like maybe you're watching the bastard child of Sorkin and Tarantino writing the script. There's not like much violence in it. There's violent language, but there's not a lot of violence. There's no nudity or anything like that. So if you're watching and your kids are around, they're going to hear some foul language. But anyway, it's on Hulu. It's so fucking good. And the music, oh, chef's kiss, pun intended. Just such a brilliant show. So I've been really involved, and my mind has been very much entangled in thinking about those characters in that show. So yeah, it's been helping me, to tell you the truth, and talking about it. Like, I really wanted to record a podcast about it, because it feels good to talk about the things that you love, right? Like that's kind of why I started, well, yeah, it is why I started the YouTube channel, because I wasn't doing it as a job. And it is why I started this podcast, because I want to talk about the things I love. I don't want to spend too much time talking about the things I don't love. Maybe a little complaint here and there, but it does me no good to spread negativity. For comedy purposes, sometimes it does, but that's about it. I'm on the path on my YouTube channel to 5,000 subscribers, which came kind of quicker than, or is coming kind of quicker than I thought it would, which is great. And then this podcast, I love doing this. I love having a microphone to talk to. And eventually I'd love to have somebody else to talk to on the other end of that microphone. Other than that, it's summertime. So I enjoy trying to take a little time for myself here and there. This past week, my friend Phil and his girlfriend Emily came to visit Washington on their 2-year dating anniversary. And I haven't met her yet. They got a cabin up in the Mount Rainier area. So I went up there for a night, went hiking with them. Felt really good to get out hiking again. I hiked, we did a little bit of Burroughs Mountain, which is on the, I guess it's like the northeast side or just the north side of Mount Rainier. And it's this beautiful hike from the Sunrise. They have different names for parts of the park, and this is Sunrise area, which would make sense because it's in the east. So we hiked up Burroughs, and it just felt good to be out there and push myself a little bit further. I was a little nervous because I used to be a big hiker. I'm talking from the years of probably 2016 or late 2015 through 2019. I'd probably go hiking once every 2 weeks, maybe a little more. And then I would do urban hikes because Seattle is one of those cities where you can walk 10 miles through 5 different neighborhoods, and you're going up and down hills, and you can cut through little parks and forests and stuff. So you don't really, it's not like walking through a city. It's very unique, and you're getting a great workout. So I kind of did that for a while to get myself in and get my endurance up. And then I went hiking with friends, and then because I worked on a freelance schedule for my old job in events, if I wanted to rent a car and drive out to the Olympic Peninsula or drive out to the Cascades and go hiking, I could. And I go hiking with friends, but I really enjoy going hiking by myself, and I would push myself. The longest hike I ever did was a place called Kendall Catwalk. Won't go into the story because there's some fucked up stuff that happened, not to me, but to somebody else on that hike. And but it was a 12-mile, it was 6 in and 6 back. And the elevation was I don't know, somewhere between 18 and 2,200 feet, in elevation gain. And I did that by myself, but that was a bad day. That was a mistake because it was so brutal coming down that about a mile from the trailhead, my knees and my feet, my legs started to give out. And I didn't fall, but I stumbled a bunch of times, and I could feel my legs getting weaker. So, from then on, I never tried to do another hike like that by myself. But I did Burroughs Mountain 3 times, and I went to the top twice, which is pretty brutal, but it's got those points where you can kind of level off for a little bit, and then you go up, 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 up. Because by the time you get to the top of that mountain, you're at around 7,000 feet elevation. And you're about halfway high as Mount Rainier. I think Mount Rainier is 14.3 or something like that. But anyway, it was nice to get back out, and I'm planning on doing it again a couple of times this summer just to take those mental breaks, to take those get some really good exercise and enjoy the outdoors. And I miss it. But now that this, the comic selling is kind of, it's doing real well. It helps that I have my audience, and it also helps that I'm good at it. So I want to say thank you to anybody that has helped me realize this dream and helped me push myself to get better at it. And so that was all a really nice little break. Wish it was longer, but you don't get to take as many breaks when you own your own business unless you're planning for them. Like, I am going to Pittsburgh at the end of August to help the Pisker family with the Comic-Con that they're doing, a small con called Eddie P. Con, and it's in memory of their brother, and it's the first year. And I'm going to go out and help them for a couple of days. I'm going to dig around Pittsburgh for comics. I'm going to take a break, but also do some really helpful stuff. I'm already built that into my schedule. And if I do end up going to Japan at the end of the year, that means I have to work my ass off in September and October and reward myself with 3 weeks off in November. So we'll see if that happens. But in that, I want to say a couple of things. I want to say thank you to all the people that have supported me, but I want to say I really appreciate you, and I want you to take what from this podcast. If any of this helps, I want you to use that to brighten your day up, to help yourself, to work on yourself. My life has been a work in progress with all of my faults and all of my problems that have arisen and still arise, but I try to take it day by day, and I want you to do that too. Just take care of yourself. We live in fucking weird times right now. We may not agree politically, but I think we can all agree that we just want to be okay. We want each other to be okay. We want happiness. We want health. We want to be able to sleep at night and a place to sleep. Just take care of yourself out there. I can't solve any of the problems, but I can provide some entertainment at dark times. That's all I can do. Thank you for listening to this one. As usual, I'm putting my hands together in a, like a fake prayer hand thing. I'm saying, please, if you are listening to this podcast and for some reason you're not subscribed, subscribe, please. But even more so, if you drop a review on Apple, if you drop a review or a comment on YouTube, apparently comments are now available on Spotify too. I'll pick one and I'll read it, and I'll give you a shout out. Or I won't. If you want to remain anonymous, I'll just say Jimmy Dugan said this. But I'm taking a page from Rob Liefeld's podcast, and I'm going to read these out loud. But the reviews, the subs, all those things, interacting with it, engagement, as the kids call it, helps push this out to more people that might be interested or might say, "What is wrong with this guy?" That's this episode. That's what's going on. Watch the bear. Go outside. And if you're going to make an offer on something on eBay, just hit the make offer button. It's so much easier for both parties. All right. And with that, my name's Dave. This is Direct Edition. And I love you. Oh, yes, I do.